podcast is proudly sponsored by Joro Protein, a Rhode Island plant-based protein supplement company designed for athletes and adventurers. They deliver 25 grams of protein, 5 grams of BCAAs, and 18 essential vitamins and minerals. It's non-GMO, it's gluten-free, it's allergen-free, no artificial flavors, no added sugar or stevia, and it has no additional gums, thickeners, or fillers. Right now, you can get 30% off on this podcast with the code JORO Rhody Strength 2022, and you can find them at joroprotein.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Phase CBD. That's P-H-A-Z-E. They are a local Rhode Island company who makes and manufactures a wide-ranging variety of CBD products that are formulated specifically for athletes. It doesn't matter if you're a CrossFitter, a strongman, bodybuilder, or powerlifter. These products are for you. These products range from tinctures to seltzers to even roll-on applicants. By supporting this business, you're supporting a local Rhode Island business and you're supporting this podcast directly. Please check them out at phasesports.com.
What's going on, guys? Dr. Matt here, host of the Rhody Strength Podcast. We've got an awesome guest on today, Scott Leech, over at URI, strength conditioning, head strength and conditioning specialist, coach over at URI. So super pumped to have you on. What's going on, man?
It's Friday, man. Can't complain, right?
Can't complain. Beautiful day. First, warm day of spring, summer.
Yeah.
So,
hope it stays this way.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm happy to be back at URI too. That's where I went to school. Alumni, I haven't been back in a while, so hopefully I can sneak into Makal afterwards and get a lift depending on what time they close.
Get a little pump, or we get a pump in here, man.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, either way. So we'll start off. I do want to get into your bio, but let's hit some rapid fire questions first, and then we'll really dive into strength conditioning here.
All right.
So we got first question, and I think I might know the answer to this just based on location and proximity, but we got favorite coffee.
What do you think?
TLC?
It's gotta be TLC, man.
TLC's the spot.
I love a nice TLC cold brew coffee.
Nice.
Nothing in it. Actually got the lion mane, little lion's mane on the desk.
Good stuff.
So sort of mixing that in lately. But
how do you like that?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Black coffee already is pretty earthy, and then it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So
true. I gotta try that. I've heard great things about it, but I've never actually gone and tried it. So
yeah, I've been on it for about a week and a half, and I feel pretty good.
Notice any like mental differences or sharper or maybe
placebo? Yeah.
Good stuff. Next one, let's go. Favorite lift, movement, or exercise in the gym, and this could be for you yourself, or it could be for your athletes, or something that you just recently you're really into, you really like.
Oh man. Honestly, I'm thinking for myself. I'm a big. I love to squat. Nice. We'll talk about favorite bar later. I have a couple favorite bars. I'm a big squat guy for myself. Mm-hmm. It's funny because athletes less so, but I like to squat. I'm getting better at bench press, but I'm not in love with it.
Cool.
I love some loaded dips. And I think for athletes, I like a resisted sprint. We have we usually do like a chain resisted sprint, just to add some load to it, or a sled if we have the pull sleds. Mm-hmm. But it's just something about that, like you're still sprinting. It's still,
yeah.
But like it feels strong at the same time. It's a pretty good feeling.
So the chains, how do you set that up? The resistance.
So we'll have a belt, and then we'll have a kind of like a string, not a string, but
some rope,
or something like that, and then a carabiner clip at the end, and we'll clip. You know, we have some chains in the room there, 25, 30 pounds. We'll clip the chain right on the end, so they're dragging that. Across our turf. We're out looking at our turf right now. We have a good 30 yards long, 10 yards wide indoors, and then we also go down to the indoor track as well.
Oh, nice!
And we can do that on the indoor track. Is pull those chains. So
cool.
You don't really need much more than that. I know the research says like between 10 and 20% of your body weight.
Sure.
I would keep it closer to probably 10% for most people. Just enough to kind of like slow you down a little bit, but you don't want to be sluggish.
Right. Right. That's cool. I like that. I haven't heard or seen of anyone doing that before. The chain resisted sprint. That's cool. Yeah. How about let's go anywhere you been recently? Place most recently traveled?
I have not done a ton of travel. I've been to Long Island. I'm going.
Cool.
I want to go back to Long Island soon. I saw a buddy out there. The bigger one is where I'm headed.
Okay.
Because I'm getting married in 35 days.
Nice.
It's
Congrats,
coming down the
man.
pipe. Thank you. And got the honeymoon already planned out. So we're going to Greece for 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah. Mykonos, Santorini, Athens. We're doing
Let's
it all.
go.
Yeah.
That'll be beautiful.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome.
I can't wait.
Good stuff. And then how about one book that either you read recently that's impacted your life or something you want to read?
Okay. I'll pick this book. I recently just gave it out to an intern. I think it's a great book. It's called The Power of Moments.
Oh, okay.
The author's, I'm blanking on the author right now, but in it, it's about how positive and negative moments can really shape your life and can send you in a positive or negative direction. So going like above and beyond to create a moment. They talk about a high school that did a national signing day for every kid going to college, not just the athlete, signing it and getting a scholarship.
Oh, that's cool.
Anyone going to college. And they put them up on stage, they put them in front of all their classmates, and they created such a moment, and they noticed that when they did that, the number of kids graduating college was significantly higher than all the years prior.
Yeah.
So it's just like, how do you go above and beyond? How do you do the little things to make someone's day? Because you don't know which moment is going to be that moment.
Right.
It's a good book. So I recommend that to a lot of people. I'm blanking on the author.
That's all good. That's easy to
Power
look
of
up.
Moments. Power of Moments.
I
Good
like
book.
that a lot. Favorite podcast?
I'm gonna pull up the phone real quick.
Go for
I am
it.
a big podcast guy.
Sweet.
I try to listen to as many as I can.
Nice.
It's more about the person, right?
Yes.
So I'm trying to find certain people on there, but in general, there are a lot of strength conditioning ones. It's called Just Fly Performance.
Just Fly?
Just Fly. That's a good one. Student Athlete Preparation Podcast. Bring on a lot of college coaches there. And the Physical Prep Podcast with Mike Robertson is another really good one as well.
Nice.
Yeah, it's more like when I hear that somebody's on a podcast, I go hunt that person down, be like, oh, what podcast were they on? And then,
Totally. I like that. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like I might listen to a bunch of different podcasts, but I'll just look through the guest list. I'm like, oh, that person's really cool. Like I want to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then this is another kind of similar question, but favorite Instagram accounts. And if you hate Instagram, that's a fine answer too. But and maybe something that either you find like entertaining or something you find inspiring or educational, or someone you look at Instagram like, oh, I like their content.
Well, I think my own Instagram.
Hey,
right?
Let's go.
It's funny because I think sometimes strength coaches are like, they don't want to do this, especially some of the older ones don't want to do the social media. They don't want to put it, or it's the opposite, like, they don't want to put that out there for the athletes. They don't want and I'm like, our kids love being on Instagram. They love seeing themselves put in the work. So I'll do that, and then we started our own Rhody Strength Instagram. So
I know, yeah.
So
there
I
we
don't
go.
know what's going on there?
At
but
Rhody, that's right. I meant to ask you about
Rhody
that.
Strength, I got that. That's mine.
I meant to ask you about that.
You cannot steal that. So
I got a side story on that in a second.
And we're always trying to pump our kids up on that.
Yeah.
That's one thing I kind of made a point, and I'm trying to get some of our guys on staff who haven't made reels and stuff before, is like, just start filming stuff. We'll figure it out later. And we'll put it together and we'll put the highlights out there, because it's one of those, I use Instagram to scrapbook my life. I want to go back to important events. I want to go back to good memories. And if we can do that with strength and conditioning, then the kids can always go back to our reels, can always go back to our posts and be like, oh, I remember that time I lifted this weight, or I remember the time we did that challenge. That was such a cool time in college.
Yeah.
And again, come back to that power of moments thing. We're trying to make this, it's not just about lifting weights, it's the experience, right? That's what college is about. So that's what we're trying to use social media and stuff for.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, obviously there's the negative side of it where you can get sucked into it too much, or you can, comparison is a thief of joy type thing. You're looking at everybody else. But yeah, I totally agree. I use mine as a scrapbook too for my life. So I think that's the positive side to it for sure.
Right.
Yeah, Rhody Strength. I forget exactly how we came upon the name. I'm in this now with two other guys partnered into it. One's our videographer. One's a CrossFit coach over at Johnston CrossFit Windrose. And so coming up with a name, I'm like, oh yeah, like Rhode Island, like strength, like CrossFit strength, like fitness, and we chose the name Rhody Strength. And I think probably like 3 to 4 months in, where somebody was typing it on Instagram. He's like, dude, there's already a Rhody Strength out there. I'm like, oh, shoot. And then we didn't even tell. So we were just at Top Strength with Steve Tripp, which is a great podcast. And it was funny because I don't know if you saw, he shouted Rhody Strength out.
You know what? I saw, it was past the 24 hours and you can't see the story anymore, but I saw that he had tagged us in something, and I'm like,
let's go. So you're probably gonna get a lot of hits from that, I would assume. But
hey, I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get.
So it's only fitting that we're now here podcasting with you guys.
We've finally united.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So all right, so let's get into the strength and conditioning stuff a little bit next. So just a quick background on you, and then we'll get into some of the stuff at URI. So where'd you grow up? Where are you living now? I'm guessing probably close to here. And then maybe your youth sports, college sports.
Yeah, so I grew up in Rhode Island. I'm from Lincoln originally.
Sweet.
Yeah, and in I always, my origin story, my superhero origin story. I grew up and I was, the stereotypical fat kid in high school, and I was, I had the jokes and all that, and my junior year of high school was 285 pounds, and I just decided one day, I was like, I'm done being that guy, and I lost 75 pounds in 1 year.
Wow.
And really got into this, and I was like, this is what's going to help me, because I wanted to play college football and keep moving on. And yeah, just the fitness was such a huge part, and I ended up going to Springfield College, where a lot of collegiate, professional, NFL strength coaches go. And when I was there, part of the education, you have to do a couple internships. So I did an internship in undergrad at Brown University. I went out to the University of Missouri for one summer. That was actually the year they won the SEC title. That was pretty cool to see how a big time, big quote unquote big time school does it. I've been to some other places. Been to the University of Albany, and then I stayed at Springfield, got a master's degree, and kept playing football while I was there.
Awesome.
And I was able to, my second year of grad school, end up being the strength and conditioning coach for the football team. So
cool.
My fourth year was my senior year, and then my fifth year I was able to go turn it around and coach those guys.
Wow.
I coached a couple other teams when I was there as well. And then from there, I had enough experience. I was lucky enough to get a job at Merrimack College, north of Boston. It was a D2 school at the time, and when I was there, they transitioned up to Division I. So that was kind of a cool process to see, a D2 school with D2 athletes. They built a brand new football stadium when I was there, and then as they transitioned to Division I, you see the kind of talent level, rise, and even some of our teams were highly competitive even that first year of Division I, just because we had some really good athletes in the building. I was there for 5 years, and we had a GA model where we had people coming in for grad school, but they're only there for a 1-year master's degree, which I think is pretty sweet. You're in and out in a year, and that's how I met one of my assistants, Mark, along the way. So being there was awesome. I learned a lot. That was the first time I was really on my own, putting stuff together, and not just for 1 year, but also like I'm in charge of an athlete for 4 years or 5 years if they end up staying for an extra year. How do you get somebody better, not just in the next 6 weeks or not just in the fall semester, but how do you keep making improvements when they've been in 3 times a week for 52 weeks for 3-4 years? It gets harder and harder to make those improvements. So that was a pretty cool thing. And then 2020, January 2020, I had a chance to come home here to URI. There was an assistant job open. The head guy at the time was actually my strength coach my freshman year of college.
No
so
way.
kind of like full circle. We had actually played each other in football that fall, so I kind of reconnected with him then, stayed in touch, and lucky enough that the job opened up, and I took the assistant job here. I was working with volleyball, track and field, soccer, baseball. A lot of teams I had worked with before, but I was no longer in charge of football. One of those things I was like, you know what, I'm open to change.
Sure.
For me though, a chance to come home and be closer to my family. And then in 2020, like I said, I think a lot of people had a very difficult year. I was one of those people. I was blessed that year. And like I said, I got a new job with a nice pay raise. I got a change in teams. I got closer to home. I ended up proposing to my now fiance. On Block Island, can't beat that, right?
Ooh, good idea. Shoot.
Yes. And then we bought a house in West Warwick.
Nice.
So I live in West Warwick now, and And then we got another dog as well. We're like, we've done it all in 2020. What else can we do? And we added a dog to the mix. So now we have 2. So 2020 was great, and the change of scenery was nice. And then I was lucky enough in the summer of 2021, so this past summer, the head guy left. He got a new job down south. That opened up a chance for me to apply for the head job. And, cool. Everyone had liked what I had been doing here. And when the head guy had left, I took over football for about 2 months or so. And,
sure.
And I had the player support for sure. They were definitely, awesome. They wanted me to be the guy. And it took a little bit longer than I would have liked. But, that's what's done is done. And I was lucky enough to be the head guy here. And with that, I was able to hire new staff. So like I said, I found, I knew my friend Mark was looking for a new job. He was the head guy at Stonehill, so he brings 5 years of head coach experience in the building, which awesome. For me, as a first-time head coach, he knows a lot of those ins and outs and how to work through administration and how to jump through all the hoops. So it's great to have him in my corner. And then we also hired a young guy, Sam Greenfield. He was at BU. Okay. So he was in Boston, but he's a Providence guy. He grew up in Providence. Oh, cool. So Mark used to live in Carmel, and he moved to Massachusetts now, right over there.
Oh, nice. So all Rhode Island guys.
So we were all Rhode Island guys there. And yeah, it's been great. It feels like it's we hit the reset button, and we can talk more about it for sure. But getting out of COVID, it just felt like with a new staff, getting out of COVID, getting back into a routine, it's been a nice reset.
Yeah, totally. Fresh start.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So that's how we got here.
So, and this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but how did you guys do through that COVID time? As far as were you still able to work with the athletes at all, or was it kind of like?
So when it first went down, obviously they sent everyone home, and we didn't know how long it was going to last. And Gina said 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and it took a little longer than 2 weeks.
Just a bit. That's all right.
Just a bit, right? So we were sending. We didn't know how long it was going to be, so we would send a 3 or 4 week program to send a PDF over to the athletes, and the gyms were all closed too, so it was a lot of body weights and just for the most part like either aerobic work or go out and hit a field and do your sprint training.
Sure.
But it was also like we don't know if we're going to come. Some of our spring teams, we didn't know if they were going to come back and finish.
Right.
Are you going to come back and finish the season? So how do you program for that? We're just kind of giving them something to hold them over. And then once we realized people weren't going to come back for the summer, we sent out a lot of body weight with a ton of tempo work, eccentrics and isometrics and things just to keep it in the mix. I know a lot of strength coaches did Zoom workouts.
Sure.
I didn't think our college kids would really do that. I think it's, some were great and some were asking questions every time we sent a workout program. But I filmed every exercise.
Nice.
From my home gym. I was like, all right, this is how you're going to do every bodyweight exercise. And some people had home gyms. So they would send us messages like, hey, I have a home gym. Can I get a different program with some weights? This is what I have. And I was like, heck yeah. That's great.
Right.
And then when we finally got back into the mix of training, there were a lot of rules. So, obviously wearing a mask 24/7. Very tricky to do, especially if we're going to do conditioning work and things like that. You don't want people huffing and puffing in the mask like that. So there were certain rules. If you were outside, very well spaced out, you could take your mask off. But in our weight room, we originally started out, everyone had their own square, and a lot of CrossFit gyms did that as well. Everything is in your square. We had a hard limit on the state. I'm looking at a room now, but we couldn't have any more than 25 kids at a time.
Oh, man.
Anytime we had a group, we had to spend 15 minutes disinfecting and then letting it dry and all that before the next group came in. So with football, that's 100 kids. So that's four groups of 25 with 15 minutes in between. It took 5 hours to train one team.
Wow.
And we have 16 teams here. Obviously, some of the teams are smaller. The other thing, we don't do it very often, but sometimes we'd have 2 teams in at once. We couldn't do that anymore because they didn't want any cross mixing of teams, even though they went back to their dorm rooms and all hung out together anyways.
Right.
I get it.
Rules are rules, type of thing.
A lot of just, and slowly, all right, you can have more than 25. Okay, you don't need to be in the boxes anymore. I think the thing that lasted the longest was just obviously wearing a mask while you train. And then they started to loosen up in terms of if you're doing conditioning, if you're doing a hard set of 10, you can take it off and breathe and then just put it back on after. And then there were a lot of things in place, like if somebody tested positive, all their roommates would also have to quarantine for 14 days. So talk about inconsistency in training where, you have a good 2 weeks and then half your team is gone because they're contact traced or they tested positive, and just
brutal.
like and we even say it. We didn't really train last year.
Yeah,
we exercised.
Sure.
Sure. We did the best we could,
mm-hmm.
but when you can't string together consistent weeks, when you can't execute a full plan, it's very tough to hit a lot of the goals. Hey, my goal of this phase is to create this adaptation.
Right.
You missed 40% of it though, so are we really getting what we tried to get out of this? It's tough. But like I said, this past year, we started the year wearing masks, and they eventually loosened that up once, everyone for the most part got vaccines. So it was nice to be like, all right, you know what? We're back on training. We're back on the routine. And a couple hiccups here and there, but for the most part, it just felt good to get back into the rhythm.
That's great. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. And that kind of sparked, I'm skipping around a little bit, but that sparked another question. When you talk about programming, adaptation, and like kind of like a full year, like periodization, I feel like most gym goers, or even like a lot of people that are doing like maybe CrossFit or different type of groups training, don't really know that side of it very much. So maybe can you bring us through like what that means as far as like getting people stronger or faster, or maybe different like in season versus out of season, or how you program it for different teams?
So when it comes to training, the simple way to explain it is what do you want to get better at?
Yeah.
And I think the more general, maybe the more beginner you are, you can get better at a lot of things at the same time. Especially if you haven't done a ton of weightlifting and strength conditioning in general. Especially a lot of our freshmen who haven't been consistently in the gym, they get stronger, they jump higher, they run faster, all from just very basic strength training.
Sure.
But as time goes on, the more you train, you need to be a little bit more specific about the things that you want to get better at. So it may be I want to dial in my max strength, or I want to really put a focus on hypertrophy and putting a little bit of muscle on, or I want to dial in our speed and power. So we also want to time those things up based on their competition schedule and what's going on. So obviously for most of our sports, other than maybe the cross countries and some of those sports, we want to be as fast and as powerful, and we honestly want to feel as good as possible late in the year, going into the playoffs, going into the postseason. So our training is going to shift towards more power and speed-based adaptations.
Sure.
If we're still doing 4 sets of 10, 5 sets of 10 late in the season, that's not going to help us perform at our highest level. But in, let's say, the off season, we know there's no games coming up. We know that the practices are very minimal. I work with football. There's a 7 to 8 week stretch at the end of December, beginning of January, where there's no practices. All they have to do is lift weights.
Yeah.
That's the time where I'm going to do, especially for our younger guys, a lot of hypertrophy and max strength work, because at the end of the day, if you have to walk around campus with jello legs, that's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Not when you have practice the next day. So we look at the year, we look at what are they doing from a practice standpoint, from a game standpoint, and then we match our training up to that. Even if you're not an athlete per se, it's a good idea to mix up what are your goals in training. So I'll do this for myself sometimes. I may commit 12 weeks of improving my body comp, right? And a lot of GPP, a lot of just general fitness, a lot of conditioning, and then once that 12 weeks is up, I'm like, okay, time to shift gears a little bit. I've improved my body comp. Let's take advantage of that and maybe shift to a hypertrophy phase, and let's try and put a little bit of muscle back on now. And then once I have that muscle, maybe after another 12 weeks, I'll shift to a strength phase. And okay, I have this newfound muscle. I've gotten a little bit bigger. Can I make myself a little bit stronger? And then I might even finish the year out with a power phase, but I don't know. I don't need it for anything, so
Sure.
I'd rather just go back to like pushing some heavier weights, or go back to I might restart depending on time of the year. Maybe right around the holidays, I might hit the body comp phase. You don't know. So for our athletes, it's important to kind of make sure our training aligns with their goals and also what they need. But then anybody can benefit from doing that. It's
totally.
Like, what's the plan?
Totally. Yeah. When and how, and I'm jumping around, but when do you utilize like a deload day, or maybe even like a deload phase?
So we try to build our programs knowing there's going to be some natural deloads in the schedule.
Sure.
Classic example is spring break.
Yeah.
They go home for a week.
Mm-hmm.
They may train when they're home, but I would say maybe 80% end up just going and relaxing for the week, or they go on. They literally go on spring break.
Yeah.
We try and plan it around certain things. Like, all right, we know finals are coming up. That's a natural deload.
Mm-hmm.
Some teams. I think we pushed everybody this week, but I think sometimes you can use Easter break because you might let them loose on Friday. They have Saturday, Sunday, and they might have Monday off as well. Right. That's a good 5-day deload there. There's just, especially once they get in season 2, the competition schedule, there's going to be some naturally built-in deloads. Like, all right, they're just not coming in the weight room this week. Like, they can't fit. We talked about it earlier with our softball team. They play like 40-something games. There's some weeks I don't see them. Mm-hmm. So we try to build them in. That being said, there are times where I'm like, oh, I pushed this team 1 week too far. Like, I really should have put it. And in that case, that's the name of the game. You just make adjustments on the fly. Like, okay, like I can tell. There was one team I work with football, and early in the week I could tell. I'm like, these guys, because sometimes you're just like, no, you're just tired. Like, work through it. And I'm like, no, like I'm looking at some of our numbers, our sprint testing and our jump testing that we do weekly, and I'm like, I think they're kind of smoked. But we knew that there was spring break coming up, and I'm like, let's just push 2 more days. Yep. And we got some of the best numbers of the year on those last 2 days. Right. Part of it, like the kids know that they got a week off coming up, but like you can push through it.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of the one of the scientific principles of it, like the supra compensation. Like you have to push past that boundary sometimes in order to make gains.
Yeah. But you just gotta be smart when you do it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, actually, another follow-up question on that. So, right when I walked in, there was a team working out. So you said softball?
Softball, yeah.
And I was asking, like, oh, is everybody... So, there's, like, 20 people, and it looked like they were all doing kind of, like, almost to me, like, I currently train CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting, so I'm like, oh, it almost looks like they're doing, like, a CrossFit-style class, because they're all doing, like, the same, like, style exercises. And I was asking you, like, okay, are they all following the same program, or is there some individual differences going on there?
Yeah, so every team starts out with maybe, let's say, like, your base template. In our general, I think I can say for the most part is we're gonna start with some foam rolls, some soft tissue. We're gonna warm up. I think for the most part we all agree there's for athletes we'll start with an athletic development period. Now that could be anything from med ball throws to sprint training to plyometrics. To anything that might help us out later in the week, some extra, or in the lift, extra mobility, maybe a little bit of core activation, glute activation go in there as well. Things that are overall going to benefit us, kind of go in that athletic. It bridges the gap between the warm-up, and you're not going from a warm-up right into banging weights. You're like, okay, it's kind of like we're throwing med balls, we're getting the CNS primed. Okay, then we'll get into our lift. And we usually, if we're Olympic lifting or we're doing some sort of loaded plyometric, that'll go early in the block. The second block will be kind of that main lower body, usually paired with an upper body and maybe a core or a mobility. And then usually a C block as well with some of those other things. You got to get your pushes and pulls in. You got to get your groin and hamstring and some of those maintenance things for athletes. Might be down in that C block there. So we start with that template, and then obviously you have to work around athletes and their limitations. So you might have somebody, I have a couple surgical cases, and it's like, okay, you're coming back from an injury. You're not going to be, you just had knee surgery. You're not going to front squat. Yeah. All right, cool. We'll work around that. But then there's also, like, you just got to know who you're working with and just go, you know what? Like, every time you do front squats, you aggravate your back. Or, your mobility is very limited. We're going to put you on the straps to get your elbows up. Or sometimes the front squat's not the answer for you. Yeah. Let's go. We have our pitch shark machine. We have sleds. We can do loaded sled work. And it's coming up with a solution there. Cool. And then... that's they're in season, so for the most part they're going to do the same program. They're all going through the same thing. Some of the younger people might be on a little bit more strength development because they're not playing as much. Sure. So you can afford to push them, knowing that okay, like realistically they may not get in the game. So I'm not worried if they're sore on game day. Where you'll see a lot of the programs divide is in that off-season period. Okay. So with football, what I do is I look at kind of 4 main categories. I look at relative upper body strength, relative lower body strength, your vertical jump, and I look at sprint testing numbers, and I kind of look through all those and decide, okay, is this person strong enough to play their sport? Is this person powerful enough to play their sport? Is this person fast enough? And depending on what you need the most, your program is going to be geared towards that. Early on in your career, it's probably you just need to get stronger.
Sure.
Right? The stronger the athlete is, more often than not, like we talked about, everything is going to get better. You're going to jump higher, you're going to run faster. But for some of our athletes that have been here 3, 4, 5 years, they're already strong enough. Do I need to take somebody who squats 500 pounds and push them to squat 505? Is that going to help them?
Right.
Like, it might, but if I can get them to go from a 30-inch vertical jump to a 35-inch vertical jump, you'll notice that on Saturday. You'll notice that when they go up and jump for a ball.
Right.
Like, you're not going to notice a 5-pound increase in your squat. So the older you are, the more your training is going to differ towards that speed and power spectrum. Just enough strength work so you don't lose it. But our younger guys, like I said, are going to get strength work, and then they're going to get some plyometrics and some sprint work because that's going to get better. But you'll see those differences more in the off season when you can afford to really push them like that. In season, like I said, a little bit more similar program for a lot of people, and then you're just working your one-off cases of, okay, this guy needs a little bit something different, this girl needs, to change this exercise up.
Sure.
And you go from there.
So it is group, but there is a lot of individual basis when needed or required.
Yes.
That's cool. So I really want to touch on this. So URI is D1 football. When did they make that transition?
So we've been D1 for a long time. Where people get confused is that there's 2 levels of Division 1. They call it 1 and 1AA.
Yeah.
They stopped calling it 1AA. They call it FBS.
Oh,
and
yes.
FCS.
Yep.
So we're in the 1AA. So you'll see, we'll play UAlbany, we'll play New Hampshire, we'll play Maine, a lot of those teams. Whereas all of our other teams are FBS per se, right? And they'll play kind of the classic teams that most people know as colleges.
Gotcha. Because my undergrad was at UMass Amherst. While I was there, they made the transition to the D1. I believe they're also FBS. I don't know if
Yep. So they're FBS.
Yeah.
And we were FCS, and URI football actually beat UMass this past year. So
the fact that,
right. So the fact that we went up a level to beat an FBS team is pretty cool.
Yeah, because you guys did well last year.
We had a pretty good year. It could have been a little bit better.
Sure.
Step in the right direction.
What anything like looking forward to this coming year as far as like any changes or anything coming up?
I mean, honestly, we talked about it a lot. This is the first time we had a true off season to develop.
Yeah.
Right, because 2020 got cut short. 2021 we played a spring football season. So.
Oh yeah.
Because we didn't have the fall of 2020, we didn't play, so we played in the spring. So we didn't get any developmental period in 2021. So this past offseason was the first time we had, I honestly have some sophomores and juniors on the team that haven't gone through that 8-week development process. Right. And some of the results and progress we made was pretty staggering. So
awesome. It's
going to be cool to put that together, and then we'll get another 8-9 week block in the summer of let's really try and push a little bit more, and it's going to be interesting to see what those guys look like going into the season. I thought we had a really good season. I thought we had a lot of good guys out there, and we took those guys and we elevated them a little bit more. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool to see what happens.
Awesome. And I could be making this up or misthinking on this. Do they have recent renovations to the stadium too?
They want to.
They want to. Okay. They're trying to push for it.
So they're pushing for it. So we'll see what happens.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then unrelated, talking about training and getting guys stronger. At what point does nutrition does that fall on you guys at all? Do you have like a nutritionist to help out with that type of stuff?
So we have a nutritionist on campus. She is in charge of the entire school.
Wow.
Which is wild. So anyone on campus that wants to meet with her, anyone that has issues with the dining hall, anyone that has food allergies and things like that, has the opportunity to meet with her, and she also is trying to help out the athletes. So she's got a lot on her plate. So we try and do as much as we can in terms of maybe providing weekly education. I'm not certified, but I know what's good and I know what's not good, right? I know what to eat, what not to eat.
Enough to help the guys out a little bit.
Yeah.
Guys and girls, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll do that, and our coaches usually ask us for advice on nutrition and things like that. So some of our teams, if they have money in the budget, they'll get maybe post-workout nutrition, either bars or protein shakes.
Nice.
Some of the teams will add maybe vitamins in the locker room,
Sure.
Vitamin D and things like that, especially in the winter, I think is a great addition. Things like electrolytes for some of our fall teams that play in August and early September. Electrolytes can, especially for some of those big, I have some massive 300-pound football players, like electrolytes is huge for them. And then, again, it comes back to a lot of it is just that education. So what I'll do is it's super simple, is we'll have a food chat group. Anyone that wants to eat better, anyone that wants to learn how to cook, anyone that just wants to have a little bit of accountability. We get one big group chat going, and we send pictures in, and then guys see that. Maybe I'll put in my meal, and they'll be like, "Oh, coach, that looks great. Like, how'd you make that?" Because sometimes it's like you just don't know how to make it.
Literally.
Or you don't have a ton of resources in college. You don't have access. Maybe some of our younger guys don't have access to a kitchen and things like that. So how can they get maybe the caloric needs that they need? How do they get make better choices in the dining hall? So sometimes that'll happen too. They'll send me a picture of what they had in the dining hall, and they'll be like, "Is this a good meal?" And I'll be like, "I don't see anything green in this picture at all. Where are the vegetables?"
Sure. And
they're like, I'm supposed to eat vegetables? And I'm like,
come on, man.
So it's like, it's education is such a huge piece. And it's meeting the kids where they're at. I don't expect you to make your fist and look at how much rice you're putting on the plate. Like,
right.
I'm just going to tell you, hey, that's too much rice, man.
Half of your plate is rice.
Come on.
All right, so let's get into a little more of the nitty gritty with the strength and conditioning next. Any major differences you see, or maybe not, with different teams like football, baseball, volleyball? As far as like training.
I mean, I'll tell you, I think all of our teams train hard. I think one thing that I like, the trend that I'm seeing, is seeing a lot more teams that want to commit to the weight room 4 days a week, 5 days a week.
Nice.
Some of our teams, if they're here on Saturday, 6 days a week.
Nice.
It gives me the freedom as a coach to do more with them. Not necessarily add more to their plate, but maybe take what I was going to do in 3 days and spread it out over 5. Or, I'm going to do maybe 3 lift days and then 2 speed agility days. It just gives you more flexibility. Or they come in and they're super beat up and practice was very tough yesterday. Well, now I can use one of my days for a recovery session, knowing that I still have 4 other days in the week to accomplish what I want to accomplish. If they only come in 2 or 3 days a week and they come in beat one day, that's 1/3 of my training. Well, 50% of my training. That's I can't afford to lose it, so I'm pushing them through. Whereas if they come in 5 days a week, okay, if we miss one and we need to do a recovery day, that's fine, because we can always catch up on the back end. So I think the more you're in, the more consistent you are, the better off you're going to be.
Totally. But as an example of that too, one of the speakers at so Rhode Island just did the NSCA conference 3 weeks ago, and one of the coaches was talking about how obviously scheduling is another topic. We talk about the scheduling sometimes during the season, between classes, between breaks, between games. Sometimes like, okay, your only block during the week you're allowed is this, and like you have a game the next day, and you're like, oh, what am I gonna do with that? So
I have a team that only is scheduled 1 day a week.
Sure.
But the athletes enjoy being in here so much, and part of that is like the environment. We're trying to create a place where they want to be in here, but they understand if I'm in here more and I'm training consistently, I feel pretty good. So they've found ways to get in. If it's we have open hours, drop-in times, where they want to come in 2 or 3 days a week. They may only have 1 day on the schedule, but they find a way to get in.
Oh, awesome! So that's good flexibility.
Cool.
Good stuff. And then kind of a follow-up question on that, any differences you see between men's and women's sports, whether it's the way you program or just the teams in general?
Honestly, not really.
Cool.
Train everybody hard. Everyone wants to get better. Everyone wants to get stronger. Everyone wants to get faster. And my style and my approach is not going to change no matter who I'm coaching. I'll coach football. I may not scream and yell as much with tennis, women's tennis or stuff like that, but they're still going to get the same old sassy me. I'm bringing the sass no matter what.
Nice.
And I'm going to give them a good training program. We're going to work hard and we're going to push ourselves. I had the ladies in on Thursday, and they're knocking out 3 sets of 6, and they got a couple chains on. They're doing loaded push-ups.
Nice.
And I'm like, good training is good training.
Yeah.
I want to provide that for everybody.
Awesome. And then we already touched on this one, differences in season, out of season. But I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add there on that point.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I'm trying to play around with more is really limit how much, and it's very hard to do, but limit how much of the recovery stuff you do, especially early on in season, and try to use it as little as possible in the off season. The idea is that if you get in the ice bath every single day, right, you get it in the off season, you get it in the summer, you go in it in the in season. What happens when you really need it to promote recovery?
Okay.
I don't know if it works as effectively the more often you do it.
Sure.
But and because part of it is in the off season, you're producing adaptations, you're creating inflammation, right? You're tearing your muscles down, you're beating them up, and then you're trying to recover. Your body needs to learn how to
deal with that,
do that recovery process.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you need to actually recover, maybe late in the season, things like that, you start introducing some more of those recovery modalities that you haven't been using. I think they work that much better.
Sure.
So maybe that's like one difference, but I don't do a ton of the recovery stuff in here. That's more of the athletic training side.
Yep.
In terms of putting them back together. But that's an idea that I always play around with, and
right.
I go back and forth on it because I also want to teach our athletes how to foam roll, how to soft tissue, how to stretch, how to take care of yourself, because those things carry over when you graduate, right? And you go to the gym for the first time on your own. I want you to know how to roll out, and I want you to know how to stretch. That way you're not going into the gym cold and you don't know what to do, and you just start lifting weights, and next thing you know you're tight or stiff or you get hurt. I'd hate to see that. So
100%. I like that. I haven't heard that that take on it before, but I like it. Almost using that ice bath or foam rolling as like, okay, this is our special recovery. We're gonna save it for when we need it, versus just like burn through it all the time. Yeah. I like that. I think that's cool. And that I had another question off that, and I just lost my train of thought, but that's all right. We'll go on to the next one. So we talked about general flow, number of days a week. So I know just from friends playing football, 2 days is a big thing, especially in the off season. Do you guys do that too?
So they have kind of slowly backed off on that.
Really? Interesting.
So now, for the most part, it's still a very busy day. Don't get me wrong. It's you wake up, and we'll put breakfast in the locker room, so our guys have breakfast before practice. But they'll sit down, they'll watch the previous day's practice, then they'll go to a different meeting where they talk about what they're going to do that day. So that's 2 meetings down. Then they get, they got to go get taped up, they got to get ready to go, and then they practice for 2 hours or so. They have lunch. They'll come back in the afternoon, and it might be a weight room session with me. So that's the quote-unquote 2-a-days now is one practice and one weight room.
Nice.
And we usually go every other day. So if they're not in the weight room, then they'll go out on the field and walk through either the mistakes they made or whatever they want to install for the next practice. They'll have a little bit of, maybe an hour or two of downtime. They'll go to dinner, and then after dinner, they'll again go back and have another meeting and watch film. So I would say it's less physical, but it's a lot. It is a lot. It's multiple hours on your feet, 2 to 3 hours of practice, and then another hour of lift or a walkthrough. And then the mental process, I think people underestimate that, of how much it is to sit there and pay attention. You're going to essentially football class, and you're paying attention of what's going on the board, what's going on in the film, and to keep your brain on for that long is not easy. And then especially if you don't know what you're doing, so our younger athletes, when they first get here, all of this stuff is coming at them 1,000 miles an hour, and they're struggling to practice, and they're away from home for the first time. And all of that stuff is stress, right? So not just physical, all of that is stress, and it's not easy. So.
And I remember my question, so I wrote it down. Okay. But as far as stress, how do you guys have any like techniques, like I don't know, like meditation, like breath work, that you help? I mean, obviously the recovery stuff too, or any resources for those guys during that time? Yeah.
So I know some of our teams have used the Headspace app.
Cool.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I know volleyball did.
Nice.
Pregame, and I think soccer did as well. And then more often than not, like, you know, if we really need to, if we need to get to that point, you know, we'll turn the lights off and we'll hit maybe a mobility flow or a mobility type circuit. You know, we may finish with a little, you know, just lay there, a little Sudha Konasana.
Ooh, nice. Right?
Well
said.
Right? Yeah. I took a 3-credit class in yoga in college.
No way.
Yeah, so
awesome.
I know a thing or two.
You can pronounce it well,
right? And so we'll do some stuff like that, and you know, as our recovery piece there. But
nice.
That is an important piece.
Oh, totally. And then backtracking just a little bit, I just want to talk about collaboration. What's it like as far as with the coaches, like the football coaches, maybe athletic trainers, maybe even like orthodox PTs? Like, how is that? Because you guys are almost like a focal point for a lot of that.
So we consider it a wheel or whatever analogy you want to use, but there's a lot of pieces, and the athlete is in the center of the whole thing. I think that's one thing that sometimes people get twisted is they want to see their program done. They want to see this executed. At the end of the day, it comes down to are we helping the athlete get better?
Sure.
Right? And a lot of it is dictated on what does the sport coach want to do at practice. Okay, and then I'm trying to bring in, okay, well, I want them to get better at X, Y, Z physical qualities. Where I see a lot of collaboration is with our athletic training staff, because they're the guys that are working through acute injuries, you know, whether it be, you know, just bumps and bruises or strains or things like that, and getting them back onto the field. And they may not always be 100% to be in the weight room, but they can suck it up and be out there on the field. And where I work a lot is with, and I know you just met him, Mark Murphy, who's a physical therapist, and he does a lot with our Rhode Island athletes, specifically our post-surgical cases. So after surgery, you know, he volunteers. He comes in a couple days a week and does physical therapy with them in the building, so they don't have to drive off campus. Some of these guys don't have cars and things like that. It's not easy to get over to physical therapy for them. You know, they got to borrow a friend's car, or they, you know, it's tough to fit it with the class schedule. So he comes here a couple days a week and puts them through physical therapy, and then he gives our athletic trainers, okay, here's the status update, here's his isometric strength, here's his range of motion, let's keep doing X, Y, and Z treatments, and let's keep doing X, Y, and Z exercises. And then in the weight room, they can do X, Y, and Z. And we work a lot, especially about getting them back, return to training, and then return to practice, and then return to sport. Because those are 3 different things. Like I can come back from an ACL surgery and start strength training in the weight room. And you should, as soon as you're able to, is get back in here and let's start building some lower body strength back up.
Totally.
But then you can get back out to practice, but you may not be ready for a sport like football. You may not be ready to collide with people. Your on-field movement skills, your linear speed might be okay, but change of direction work is something that takes a while to come back, especially after something like an ACL.
Sure.
So I'm kind of the bridge the gap of, okay, you've passed physical therapy, but now we need to get you closer to what you're going to do in a game. And I kind of fill that void there. But Mark Murphy, our physical therapist, has been absolutely phenomenal about, he's not a soft physical therapist by any means. He understands that good physical therapy should look like strength conditioning. They shouldn't be that much different.
Definitely.
It's just the level of intensity will change. So there's a lot of collab there.
That's awesome. Yeah, he had a great presentation. Shout out Mark Murphy when I met him at the NSCA event. He had a great presentation on PT and strength conditioning, and some of like the nuances that go on with that. So that's cool. Yeah, I was curious about that. And I mean, maybe just diving a little deeper. How about between you and the sport coach? Do they maybe like dictate some things as far as like, okay, we have this opponent coming up, or maybe like, hey, like we want to work on this, or a team needs to work on this, or anything like that?
So what I do is I try to be at as many meetings as possible and hear what's going on and see, okay, what is the vibe? What are the messages that we're trying to communicate to the team? Because I want to be able to say the same things. I don't want to be like, everything's going great, when the coaches are like, we need a sense of urgency in the building. So we need to all speak the same language. I try and share as much info as I can of the things that I look at. So, for example, it might be as simple as just tracking everyone's body weight. And it could be one person, hey, this person's, you know, down maybe 10 pounds in the past 2 weeks. That's a red flag to me. Or you know, if it's progress, or hey, this person, maybe we did want them to lose 10 pounds and they've been doing great. Sure. I want to share that information.
That's good. Yeah. That's
then
good.
During certain periods, so after the season, I'll sit down and be like, okay, what did we do well? What do we need to get better at? And almost kind of go through each guy and say, what does this guy need to take another step? And for the most part, I have a pretty good idea based on what I've collected for physical data.
Yeah.
But they might also tell me things unrelated to the physical. You know, hey, he needs to step up and be a leader in his group.
Sure.
He needs to separate himself from some of the younger guys because he's a dominant younger guy, and he needs to start acting like one of the more mature guys in the room.
Sure.
In order to take that next step. Things like that are important. I'll do some other things as well just to track what we're doing at practice. I want to get into the GPS of wearing a GPS at practice, see how fast you're running, see how many miles you're covering. It's pretty popular now, obviously, in the NFL and all the major sports. And a lot of colleges have it as well. I'm in the process of getting it.
Sweet.
It'll happen. It takes time. It takes time. So we have that going as well. But even something as simple as a wellness survey. How much sleep did you get? What is your mood? How much stress do you have in your life right now? I'm trying to figure energy level, and then how sore are you? I can use those things and blend them together into a kind of an overall score and say, you know, across the board, you know, our wellness is going down a little bit. I think we need to give them, you know, maybe not a full deload, but we might need to give them a day off. We might need to give them an afternoon off even.
Yeah.
And you watch, it's so funny. You know, we talked about the 2 days of football.
Yeah.
You know, we might go 2-3 days in a row and then give them a day off. And you watch this wellness score of like, okay, every day, like we're getting a little bit more beat up, and then you give them a day off and it bounces right back up.
They recover.
They bounce back up on the day before the day off because they know the day off is coming, and then they come and they're even higher on the day off.
Gotcha.
So it's so funny.
Mentally, they're already there.
Yeah, they're like, oh, one more day, I can fight. I feel a little bit better because I know that I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right, there's hope.
It's pretty funny.
All right, so I won't keep you too much longer, but we'll just hit maybe a couple more questions.
Okay.
Let's see. So this was one of me personally I had interest in. What do you like to do for your programming as far as, do you like to use percentage-based stuff, RPE, block training, undulating, or maybe like I'm sure you switch it up, like do different stuff?
So for myself, it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get in a really good routine and I can train pretty consistently. In the fall, as strength coaches, like I'm not gonna write my own program because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do my own thing. I want to experiment. So a lot of times I'll go out and I'll look for programs from good coaches, or you know, I've seen the guys over at you were just at Top Strength.
Yeah,
like they have a lot of, you know, good programs there, and I've done some of those things. And sometimes it's like I just need to be told what to do.
Yes.
Everyone at some point just needs to be told what to do. Look at the sheet and just do your workout.
Yep.
There's other times where I'm like, I want to try new things because part of my job too is to figure out what do our athletes need. And if I'm just doing the same old thing year after year after year, I'm not looking at new things. I'm not trying to. So one thing that we did this year is we, I don't know if you've ever heard of Tendo units.
Are those the ones that measure velocity?
Yep. So so I got a technology purchase this year to get one for every rack. We have 14 racks here. So now every rack has the Tendo unit. You can track how fast you're moving the bar. You can look at like an average or a peak velocity, but you can also do power equations on it as well. So we're looking a lot more and playing around with it of using VBT in our training. Yeah. Because now your percentage can go up and down. Like especially in college, like some of these guys, they stay up until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And you know, you hope that they're out studying and working on projects they need. But sometimes you're out until 1 o'clock doing dumb things, you know. So you got to come in the next day, and it's like, all right, you got to work up to a single at 90%. It's like that 90% might be 102% today. Yeah. You know, it's But it might feel a little heavier. But with VBT, we can say, okay, you're going to work up to 1 rep, and once it's below 0.35, you're done for the day. Your set's over. So playing around with a lot of different protocols on those has been fun. We've even started mixing them in with some of our teams. Like we did, we've been doing bench press. It's funny. You write on the sheet 3 by question mark because you're gonna do as many reps as you can. at maybe I'll put like 75% or something like that, until your speed falls below a certain threshold.
That's so cool.
And the way we play 2 strikes and you're out. Because, so you're going, and we put the thing right above their head, so they're bench pressing, and they see, all right, 0.6, 0.59, 0.58, and they're like trying, and it's slowly creeping towards maybe 0.5 is the cutoff. And they'll hit one at 0.47, and they're like, okay.
1 strike.
And they're like, and then so we're really getting great intent and great effort out of it, and sometimes it's just it's you get more out of them than if I just said 3 by 10 at 75%.
Right.
Because you might get a guy who can squeeze 13 or 14 reps out of that.
Right.
Or flip side, somebody who stayed up and pulled an all-nighter to finish a project.
Yeah.
10 might have killed them, but 6 or 7 is right in that sweet spot for them.
Sure.
Without really putting them in a deeper hole.
It takes into account the day-to-day variations that you might see.
Yeah.
That's
so
really cool.
It's been pretty cool. So we're doing a lot more with that, and like I said, sometimes I shut up and follow the program, and then there's other times where like I'm playing around, I'm experimenting.
Sure, in the lab.
One of our favorite things is like we find these crazy. We have a couple Aerodyne bikes, so we just find these crazy protocols, and we like put ourselves through them and see what we can do.
See what happens.
Oh man, we hit one this week. Do you have Aerodyne bikes?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so it was super simple. 1 minute on, 1 minute off.
Okay.
On the offs, you can't pedal.
Okay.
Right, so you're completely, you can get off the bike or whatever, or you can just put your feet up on the peg. So 1 on, 1 off, 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 3 off, and then you come downhill, 2 on, 2 off, 1 on, 1 off, and you had to get 300 calories.
Really? Okay.
In that time period. So
tough?
It's...
I'm going to have to test that out. I'm going to try it.
First time we did it, we got 269.
Oh,
so it's...
Close.
it's going to take a little bit. We'll see what happens.
Nice. I like that. I definitely like that. How do they come up with 300?
I forget who even told me about it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where again, maybe social media. I saw it on social media. You know what it was? It was on social media. It was the strength coach at Southern California.
Okay.
Yeah, he put it out there, and I was like, you know what? Screen grab.
Yep.
We're gonna try it ourselves.
Let's give that a shot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. You probably grabbed you some super fit guy and like, all right, let's see what you get.
Yeah.
All right, that's the standard.
Well, I mean, I'm a bigger guy. One of my assistants is a big guy, so we hit 269-ish calories, and then I have Mark, who's a smaller guy, but a little bit more endurance.
Sure.
He's a lax player, hockey player.
Okay.
And he's same thing. He hit like 240, 250 or something like that. And I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be our endurance guy. You're supposed to be able to push. So
hey, sometimes the big guys can crank it
especially
on that bike.
on the bikes. Yeah, it's a bigger you are, the longer you are.
Yeah.
There's levers to it. So but yeah, that's the challenge. Put it out there.
Yeah, I will. Okay, so let's I guess let's start to wrap up. So get you out of here.
Yeah.
Anything in store for the future? I guess I know you have that presentation coming up that you're working on for the NSCA.
Yep.
Anything else that you want to plug or anything else you want to shout out? And then the last question I'll finish with, and you can take some time to think about it too, but if you have one favorite quote, mantra, or saying, maybe not even of all time or something that you like right now, the way I describe it is you get a billboard. Yep. And you can put that on that so everybody driving by can see. On 95.
My billboard's right behind you, but we'll get there.
Oh, nice. All right, cool.
What do I got coming up? So will probably happen before. I don't know when this is going to get posted, but
should be like 2-3 weeks.
Okay, so it might happen like right around the same time. But I'm speaking at the NSCA New England Regional Clinic up in Biddeford, Maine, University of New England. Talking about kind of some of the stuff we talked about today, like how has my training program for football differed from 2019, which was the last time I was kind of in charge running the show, to now, because that's a good 3 years there. I've learned a lot along the way, and a lot of things have changed. So that'll be a fun presentation. And other than the Rhode Island one, I didn't make it out to that, but. I haven't really been out to a conference or anything like that since the pandemic. Yeah. I went to one actually right before, like January of 2020.
Nice.
And I think that was the last conference I really went to. So this will be a lot of fun to go out and see a lot of people. And I know a bunch of strength coach friends that are going to go. So that's cool for me. I spoke at it once before, but I haven't in a while. So I like getting up on stage and putting on a show. So got that coming up. We are trying to start a high school summer camp here.
Sweet.
So for any high school athletes and even college athletes that are home for the summer that want to train in here, it's called Rhode Island Sports Performance.
Oh, that's
summer
an
strength
awesome
camp.
Opportunity.
So we're going to put a 2-day, a 3-day, and a 4-day training program together. It's kind of be in the middle of the day. But if you want to get trained in a college strength and conditioning setting, with college strength and conditioning coaches, with a program to get you ready for college strength and conditioning.
Look nowhere else.
Look nowhere else, because like there's no one else offering that.
Yeah, that's unreal.
No knock. There's a lot of really good coaches in this state. There's a lot of really good personal trainers here, but it's just one of those things. Like, we're the only ones in the state that can provide this.
100%. This is a beautiful weight room.
Right, and how cool would it be to say that you trained in the URI weight room all summer?
Yeah,
it's a pretty cool experience. So we're starting that up this summer.
Cool.
Hopefully we should have the website up by the end of April. So I'll get that stuff to you if you're gonna put that in the description there.
Definitely.
But I tell people, like I said, I'm from Rhode Island. I grew up here, so to be the head guy, I want to put Rhode Island on the map. Especially as someone that played sports in Rhode Island. There's always that Rhode Island had that little bit of chip on your shoulder, right?
Yeah.
It's like that small state, underrepresented, and we're trying to change that. I want URI to be a place. When kids come to visit, they know that, okay, wow, they have a really good strength and conditioning program. I've heard that before I even went on my visit. I know that if I go there, I'm going to get a great experience. I'm going to get developed. I'm going to get the tools and resources I need to go to the next level, whatever that is for that sport.
Yeah.
I just want people to know that strength conditioning at URI is kind of the place to be.
Yeah.
And you want to be in on the action. You want to be in a piece of it. So.
Cool.
Between Rhody Strength on Instagram and just like I said, we'll get the summer camp going. Those are kind of the big things there, and we're always, like I said, trying to show off what our kids are doing. They work their tails off, so we're always trying to put out some clips of the training. If you want to see what college athletes do, that's another thing we put on there, is all of our training all the time of what we're putting the kids through. So that's all there. But yeah, those are the big things.
Awesome.
It's not about me. It's about what we're doing.
Yes.
That's more important.
Absolutely. I like that a lot. And I've had a couple people recently, Steve Tripp being one of them, another guy I trained with at Providence Barbell Club, who's helping us with the podcast, say the same exact thing. He's like, dude, let's just get everybody in Rhode Island in the fitness and health space, let's put them on the map. So I like how you said that.
I just want to see everybody win.
Yes.
Like, when I win, it's great, but like when my whole family's eating, it's good times.
It's good stuff.
So.
And then last question, your quote mantra is
right
here.
I mean, I leave it on the back wall there. It's an old firefighter's quote: "Let no man's ghost return to say his training let him down." You can try and turn the camera so you can see it.
Lock it.
Right. So the idea, right? Let no man's ghost return to say his training let him down. And with firefighters, the idea was, if you don't train hard enough, it might cost you your life. Like literally. So I don't think, and I don't ever want people to think that exercise is life or death. But what you do in here and what you do at practice and the process you take over your 4 or 5 years here, that training process, I don't want you to have any regret. And part of that is on me to give you the best program possible. I don't want you to have a bad strength coach or a bad time in here and know when you graduate, man, I wish I was pushed a little bit harder. I wish my program was a little bit better. So I'm going to guarantee you the best possible program I can get you. I'm going to continue to research. I'm going to continue to stay up to date. I'm going to continue to push you. And then it's on you as an athlete to take advantage of that. Because that's the biggest thing, is if you look back in 4 or 5 years and you wish you could go back and change things, it's too late.
Yeah.
We talk about the big picture, and obviously you always want to maybe go to the NFL, you want to go to the NBA, you want to play at another level, you want to win championships, but don't lose sight of today.
Yep.
Right, and get the most out of today, because you may not notice it. Right, you can go work out and you're going to be tired, but you may not feel stronger in a day.
Sure.
Right, but in 4 or 5 years, if you didn't do that every single day, you're going to regret it, because then you're going to notice the difference. Right, so we always, don't let that ghost come back and say that you let you down. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we'll end with that. We'll let you get out of here.
Alrighty.
Awesome
Thanks
podcast.
for coming in, man.
Yeah, good to meet you in person.
And if you ever want to come back and get a lift in, let me know.
Absolutely. Awesome. Rhody Strength signing off.